Hello students, good afternoon. I am Deepali Devi, your geography teacher. On previous day, on our previous class, we discussed about second chapter from your textbook, Forest and Wildlife Resources. In our previous class, we discussed about the flora and fauna in India, the list of critically endangered species like that. Today we are going to discuss about what are the negative factors that cause such fearful depletion of the flora and fauna. These are the answers that then what are the negative factors that cause such fearful depletion of the flora and fauna. The excessive consumption of natural resources for fulfilling human needs such as wood, barks, leaves, rubber, medicines, dyes, food, fuel, fodder, manure, etc. These are the things. And next, the expansion of the railways, agriculture, commercial and scientific forestry and mining activities. Large-scale development of projects and mining activities, then unequal access, inequitable consumption of resources, and differential sharing of responsibility for environmental well-being. These are the negative factors that cause such fearful depletion of the flora and fauna. These are the things, due to these things, the negative effects fall in flora and fauna. After that, the government taken some steps to protect flora and fauna. The Indian Wildlife Act was implemented in 1972 to protect the habitats that the flora and fauna, that means the plants and animals, have to protect. The government taken the steps to save these type of things, that plants and animals. Some plants and animals are going to be endangered, some are going to be extincted from our place. So the government has taken steps in 1972. It aimed banned hunting, protecting habitats and restricting trade in wildlife. That if government has taken these steps, still the killing of the rhinoceros in our area, especially in case of Assam, these are going on. These are going on. If these are banned, the hunting these animals for business purposes, these are still going on. The many national parks and wildlife sanctuaries were set up by central and state governments. Projects like tiger projects, rhinoceros were announced under the Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986. Several hundreds of butterflies, moths, etc. were included in the list of protected species. Then these are also the species, and sometimes these are killed carelessly. So these are also included in the list, that these species have to protect from the harmful effects. In 1991, for the first time, 6 species of plants were also included in the list. Next, we are going to discuss about the Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. In 1960s and 1970s, the conservations demanded some rules to protect the wildlife. Conceding to their demand, the government enacted the Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Under this act, an all India list of protected species was published. Hunting was banned to protect the remaining population of some endangered species. Trade in wildlife was restricted and the habitats of wildlife were given legal protection. Many national parks and wildlife sanctuaries were established by various state governments and the central government. Several projects, sorry, Several projects were announced for protecting specific animals. For example, Project Tiger. The benefits of conservation helps in preserving ecological diversity and our life support systems, water, air, and soil. These are the benefits. It preserves the genetic diversity of plants and animals. Types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. In India, forest and wildlife resources are owned and managed by the government through the forest department or other government departments. These are classified under the some categories. Reserve forest. More than half of the total forest land in India has been declared reserve forest. The more than half of the total forest land in India has been declared reserve forest. Protected forest. Forest Department has declared one third of the total forest area as protected forest. Unclassed forest. These are the forest and wastelands which belong to both government and private individuals and communities. Northeastern states and parts of Gujarat have a very high percentage of their forest as unclassed forest. After that, reserved and protected forests are also referred to as permanent forests, which are maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest produce and for protecting regions. Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under permanent forest. The destruction of forest and wildlife is not just a biological issue explained. Then if the this is the question actually question the answer is the biological loss is correlated with the cultural loss. Many indigenous and forest dependent communities are marginalized and improvised. Within the poor, the women are affected more than men because they take the responsibility of collection of fuel, fodder, and water. Walking more than 10 kilometers per day to collect these will create health problems to the women and also do not get time to and also do not get time to look after homes and children. It is very difficult for the women that they have to leave their child at home and they will be tired physically if they have to walk more than 10 kilometers per day to collect these things. Droughts and deforestation induced floods and the other results of deforestation. Droughts and deforestation induced floods are the other results of deforestation. Next, poverty is the direct outcome of deforestation. The how communities have conserved forest and wildlife. Some communities, there are many communities living in the world. So especially some communities they conserve some forest areas and the wildlife. For example, many communities are struggling to conserve the habitats along with government officials. In Sarika Tiger Reserve, it is located in Rajasthan. Villagers fought against mining and protected the habitats of plants and animals. The inhabitants of five villages in Alwar districts of Rajasthan have protected 1200 hectares of forest by making their own rules and regulations. The Chepko movement in the Himalayan region registered, resisted the deforestation and encouraged afforestation program. The ecological faming like bee Bachao Andolan, bee Bachao Andolan and Navarinda were introduced by the farmers without the use of chemical fertilizers. The chemical fertilizers are very harmful for this forest, so they banned. They are not using chemical fertilizers. Without using chemical fertilizers, they want to save this ecological system in that area. The Joint Forest Management, in short JFM, prog- program was started in Orissa in 1988 and introduced with the collaboration of villagers. So these are the things the particular communities they conserve their areas by their own rule and they try to protect the forest, try to conserve the forest area and their wildlife. So the students, this was for today and later the last part we will discuss in our last class. Thank you.